Struggle is the byproduct of opportunity. I'm in a better position as a paraplegic than I ever was when I was walking. And if it's up to me, it's up to me. And you can hear and maybe see the emotion in my voice as I do the intro for the show, because I was blessed to have an incredible woman who I call a dear friend, a sister, who is just a walking inspiration in making this world a better place. And this podcast is loaded with nuggets and permission slips and perspective that can empower every single person, myself included, to live a better life. We talk about taking responsibility for our own health and well-being and making conscious choices that align with our goals, how to develop a bulletproof mindset by surrounding yourself with positive influences and constantly seeking personal growth, how we can leave the world better than what we found it by being the change we want to see, and all the benefits that we receive in the process. And her story alone is so empowering for everybody, myself included, to get up and seize this life, to get up and be the difference, to get up and make it. And I can't do it justice. And so I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to end this intro so we can get into the show with my dear friend, the Queen, Jessie. And so without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. And today I'm excited. Excited is an understatement. Humbled is an understatement. And I feel like I'm going to get taken to church for so many reasons, because there are so many points in my life where I feel like a honey badger and that I'm just this bad man. And then I am blessed from God to have met this incredible woman who just literally humbles me for all the right reasons while also calling me forward. But I can't even begin to give context for all the reasons, because I could think of hundreds as to why she inspires me, from who she is in the world to the way that she looks at the world to the way that she stands for the world, how she lives authentically, uses her story to empower others. And just to give you some, she's been all over the world. She is featured everywhere. She is just a savage in every way that you can imagine and literally embodies that you can't hold me down, bro. And I mean it at a level that you can't even imagine. And so without further ado, I am honored. I am humbled. I am so excited to welcome my dear friend, Jessie, to the show. Jessie, welcome to the show.
George, I'm so stoked to be here. Thank you for just sharing your time with me and your energy. I feel very blessed and fortunate for that.
Oh, I'm ready, knowing already that my bucket's getting fuller just from being on this call with you. This podcast gets to be a gift for me, because just with how you DM me and what we talk about, it's like every time I hear you speak, you just embody awesomeness. And I don't have another word yet to describe it. And I am just so excited and so ready. So trust me, the gift is all mine. The pleasure is all mine. My world is your world. I'm sure there will be many more in the future. And so I'm just excited to capture a couple of moments, or at least an hour of moments of your incredible essence for everybody today. So I was talking to Jessie before the call, and I'm just going to say this flat out. And I was like, hey, Jessie, I just want to make sure that people, really right in the beginning, we give them something to go. And she's like, oh, shut up. She didn't say it like that. She said it way more excited. And she's like, I got one. And so, girl, I'm just going to let you take me to church with what you shared for me. So go.
Can I tell you, I just changed it in this intro.
You did?
Yeah. So I really want to, I was an atheist before this life-changing thing happened to me. And the more I lean into God, the more I give my life to God. And I'm like, hey, lead me. The more I'm connected with incredible people like yourself, the more opportunity that comes my way. And with that opportunity comes struggle. And I think we get it twisted where we pray to God and ask for this strength, this guidance, these things, without understanding that we're not going to be able to do that without struggle. That is a byproduct of getting to where you want to be. That is a byproduct of opportunity. And the sooner that you embrace that struggle and that hardship in your life, the sooner that you can actually get after life, attack it, and get to that good side.
It's almost like you turn obstacles into opportunities, and it all makes sense and matches now. I see how this goes. Oh my goodness. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to shut up now and let you go, because you even just speak with more energy than I do. And you nailed it. And I'll share the same thing. For sure. I mean, I'm like the walking fortune cookie here. And my joke is, when you ask God to move a mountain, you forget you wake up with a shovel, right? And it's like, well, somebody's got to prep you. You got to have the endurance. You got to be able to do it. But I think this is actually kind of the perfect time to talk about the obstacle, because I feel like it frames so much of where we are and who you are. And it brings me to tears to even think about the difference you are and you make in the world. because you literally turned obstacles that some people would like literally let kill them and end up in depression and end up just not wanting to be here anymore. And you are just lit up and radiant and alive. And I watch you travel this world literally everywhere, pick up the phone, and you do it with ease. And so I would love for you to just share with everybody your story, because I'm so excited to hear it, and for everybody hearing this to listen to it.
Oh, absolutely. So I grew up racing off road, which is why I'm kind of a tomboy, straightforward. I grew up in a man's world, and I think that that really shaped my grit in the way I kind of view the world, because I was surrounded by men. I wasn't scared to get dirty. I wasn't scared to learn how to change the top end in a single cylinder motor and be like, yeah, I got this.
I can't do that. I can't do
No.
that. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're speaking French to me right now, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm like over here feeling demasculated.
Well, it's because I grew up racing off road, and like when you grow up in the motorcycle dealerships and in and out of that, it comes with the territory. So I got a full factory ride at 16 with a tire company. So they paid for everything. My parents uprooted us from where I grew up in Canton, Ohio, and we moved outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so my parents literally moved their whole life just so I could live my dream. And I pissed it away. I wasn't disciplined. I had no idea how the role nutrition played in your performance, the role what you feed your mind plays in the performance, the fact that you can't smoke cigs and not work out and still expect to do good. Like, I was that person that has everything handed to them and then just pisses it right away. And so when I graduated high school at 17, and I went right into the workforce. And when you get into a restaurant and you start working around those type of people, now you're drinking every day, you're smoking more cigarettes, you don't have a good sleep schedule, you're not working out, you're going out every night. And so here I am, 18, 19 years old, going out with my fake ID, going out and getting drunk and driving, going out and doing all of these things. I feel there was 2 times in my life where God tried to wake me up. I didn't believe in a higher power. I was like, oh, it's nonsense. I had a bad experience with the church and it ruined me. And so I got pregnant at 15 and had an abortion. And I feel now, after deep reflection, I feel that was God's first sign of being like, hey, girl, wake up. But I wasn't listening. And too often we go throughout life and we're not listening. God's telling us. He's given us the signs. He's given you all the ingredients to bake the cake, but you're not following the instructions. And God's like, hey, girl, stop giving your body out. Learn to love yourself. Take care of yourself. Maybe this will wake you up. And it didn't. I had an abortion, and a month later, I was back sleeping around. So fast forward from 15 to 21, I'm still partying and drinking, sleeping around. 22, I'm using people on the back of a guy's motorcycle that I happened to be using. He wasn't paying attention. This woman made a U-turn, wasn't paying attention. He runs into the back of her SUV. He goes through the passenger window. I go over the SUV. He breaks his leg. I break my back in 2 places. My chest collapses. My ribs punctured my spinal cord. Punctured my lungs, nicked my spinal cord. I have a traumatic brain injury. I coded twice and had to be resuscitated. Like, the fact I'm still sitting here, and I'm sitting because now I'm a paraplegic. I died and had to be resuscitated. The day before my accident, I was at my ex-boyfriend's grandmother's funeral. And as the pastor was speaking, I felt warm calmness come over me. And I knew that everything was going to be okay and that there was a God and there was a higher power, but I thought it was Granny's passing. The next day, I'm in this life-changing motorcycle accident where I code and had to be resuscitated. I see my own grandmother and she tells me, Jessie May, it's not your time. I can't stay with you and you can't stay with me, but you have things to do and people to get back to. So I got sent back to this world for something way bigger than me. And having a spinal cord injury is not easy, but I had struggles before I was injured, from snorting pills, drinking every day, sleeping around, having no self-love, no self-respect, no care. Those struggles were just as bad as being paralyzed, if not worse. I am in a better position as a paraplegic than I ever was when I was walking.
Oh, okay, girl, we out here now. I feel every feeling in my body that I could ever feel at one time. And I'm like, I also completely understand why we are friends. Holy moly. Wow. So thank you. Just thank you. Like, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being in the position. And also, I know the amount of work and time and depth that you get to go to on the inside and be in to be able to share this so clearly and so cleanly, to be able to share this message with people. And so, like, I just want to say thank you first off from the bottom of my heart for being who you are and sharing all of that. And so I kind of want to hear about this a little bit. Like, you got in a motorcycle accident, you were passenger on a seat, you went over the car, had to be resuscitated twice, became a paraplegic. What is, just for everybody listening, myself included, is
Yeah.
paraplegic waist down?
Yeah, so I initially was paralyzed from the middle of my chest down, about armpits. So a
Okay.
lot of times if you see me, it looks like I have a little bit of a belly. That's because I don't have good core control yet. So I've been paralyzed. I was paralyzed in 2015. At the time of this recording, it's 2024. So 9 years. I was what's called a complete injury. So I wasn't supposed to recover or get anything back. About 3 years in, I changed my mindset, my nutrition, started regaining a little bit of pressure sensation, a little bit of hip flexor. But then I got involved with where I'm involved at now. And in the last 2 months, I've regained more sensation and movement than I know what to do with at the moment. So
I
God is
also I also love that even when you speak, you're like, yet, yet. Like, you're like, ain't nothing holding me down, ain't nothing at all, right? And so one of the things, and I didn't say this before, like, I literally, like, am in awe of you. Like, I've had injuries and I've had similar experiences, not to the degree, right? They told me I lose my legs, and I feel like, and it's all relative, but I'm like, oh my God, girl, like, it took me way longer, like way longer, 100-pound roller coasters up and down and all these different pieces to, like, really, really get it. And I watch you savage life through airplanes, cold baths, ice baths, here. And I'm like, I think the only people in the world that think you're in a wheelchair is everybody looking at you, because you're like, ain't nothing gonna hold me down. Like, nothing. I'm like, I think, like, genuinely, I'm like, at this point, I don't even think it exists. It's just a figment of my imagination watching you, like, love life, right? And what was that like? Because you said for, like, the first 3 years it wasn't really dialed in, and then you really started to kind of shift things, right? And you talked about earlier how you were, like, taking life for granted and lacking the discipline and not really taking care of yourself to be able to nurture your body and be where you are now. Like, what was that transition like, and what do you focus on now? Like, because I watch you, right, and I'm in awe of you. You share so much of this publicly on your Instagram, and it is inspiring to me. And I'm like, all right, George, come on, like, all right, cool. Like, I love how my friend Jesse just sucks the oxygen out of all my own crap without me even being able to sit in it, right? And then, of course, if I'm in it, you just magically send me a DM in that moment. I'm like, oh, of course Jesse's messaging me right now. Hi, God. Thanks for the phone call, picking it up right here, right? But, like, what was that transition like? Because I also think all too often, and you said this before we recorded, I don't even remember what the first thing you were going to share was, but we fall into this trap of, like, getting convinced that where we are now is where we're going to be stuck. Like, there's no way to change it. And obviously, even you were told by doctors and everybody else, like, you're full complete injury, you're not going to have function by the chest down. And you're like, huh? Watch me.
That's literally what I
Watch
said
me.
to them. I did say that word for word,
Oh, I
verbatim.
can see that all day.
I was like, you don't know who I am. Absolutely not. No one's telling me what I can't do, first of all. And I would be lying if I said I didn't have moments of self doubt. I was on the phone with one of my business partners this morning, and when we were talking, I told him, I was like, man, I broke my foot. I fell out of my wheelchair a couple weeks ago and broke my foot. So I haven't been able to stand. And it's been taking a toll on my mental health. And for a minute, I'm like, am I really recovering? Is this real? Is this what I'm really feeling? And so about that 3 years in, when I started working on my mental health, I had fallen on the floor continuously and I couldn't get myself back up. So imagine falling on the floor and just being stuck there for hours waiting for someone to come save you. And that was the realization of nobody's coming to save me but me. So I have to figure this out. I don't have a choice. If I want to live life independently, if I want to live life to the absolute fullest, like I say, if I truly want to embody what I say about myself, I have to give it my all. And I'm not perfect by any means. I have bad days, but you typically see me go live and cry about it on Instagram. And like, I have moments, but I will say now My life is, I have way more good days than I do bad moments, because I don't even have bad days anymore. I don't allow myself to stay there because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And the sooner you understand that your feelings don't matter, they don't. They're fleeting. Tim Grover says it best: feelings are fleeting, and if you constantly act on your feelings, you are not going to get to where you want to be. They truly are. You feel so good one moment, and then you feel terrible the next, and then you feel good the next, and that's all within an hour span of time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just stay in the bad and you don't allow yourself to come out of it, all you're doing is hurting you, and you are the problem. You are creating your own reality. And the sooner you realize you are in control to a certain extent, God's going to go ahead and guide things, but you are in control of your day to day. If you only give it to God and take zero action, you're not going to get anything in life. You have to take action in your own life if you want to change your circumstances. And we get so caught up in this day to day of, I'm stuck here and I hate where I'm at and I'm miserable. And again, I'm guilty. I've just came out of a month-long lull because I feel lonely. I want a family. I want kids. I want these things. But that is not part of my purpose right now. And when you are purpose-oriented, purpose-driven, and really connected with the mission that you are after, when you don't get those things you want, it makes it a lot easier to continue to execute. I think the thing I do very well nowadays is execute regardless of how I'm feeling.
Girl, I'm just going to retire. I'm just out, right? Like, you're like God's gangster over here, right? I'm like, nope. I'm like, I used to think I sucked the oxygen out of people's excuses, but you're just like, George, trumped. And I'm like, I support you all day. Let's go. All day. And I'm going to give a second to Tim. Tim's incredible, and his books are incredible. And here's a little science fact for you too. The emotion that you feel only actually lasts for 90 seconds, and the rest of it is choice and episodic memory, because the ride is only 90 seconds. That's how long it takes for the body to feel an emotion.
Wow.
And then it's gone. And then the rest of it is stagnant. This is why I'm benefited to be surrounded by really smart people around me all the time. But then the more I'm around them, I'm like, wait, but there goes my hiding place. There goes my hiding place. What are you doing to me? Wait, what are you doing? No, get me back. Like, I kind of want to wallow in my own crap for a minute, right? And it's true. It just becomes this self-fulfilling trap. And then you even understand, and you take it back to the reticular activating system of your brain, and what you resist persists. So what you focus on, you see more of. And so, like, that's what it is you were going to say at the beginning of it. You're like, I was a victim of my own reality. And everyone's like, huh? And I was like, well, you ever notice you go buy a brand new black Jeep, and all of a sudden, before you owned it, there were none in town, but now you own it and there's 50 that you didn't see exist before? It's the same with how you view your brain. And our dear friend Sharon Lecter, who wrote Outwitting the Devil, I talk about her all the time because she breaks this down really simply. And she's like, your thoughts dictate your words, which dictate your actions, right? And it's really the thoughts that we have on the inside that get us there. But I also want to hit something that you said, because you're like, when I'm purpose driven, and one of the things you do is you help people find direction, right? Like, in their life, and whether it is like, what is a way that somebody can even start to find that? And I feel like, for me, what I see and notice is, like, the only reason I have direction in my life is because I've had some catalytic moments that have broken me. And it's like, I just got to the point, and I think I have a similar flavor of you. Like, when the phone rings, I ignore it for 10 times, and then it gets increasingly louder, and then it gets jackhammered in. And it's like, wait, okay, cool. I'm just going to break everything around you, George, and you're going to realize that you get to look up and pick up the phone. And I'm like, okay, phone picked up, right? But the collateral damage, I was like, oh, and now I get to clean all this up because I caused this too. Amazing. And he's like, well, welcome to your bed. Go sleep in it and go make it better and go make it comfy, right? But I also think that, you have this incredible gift and this incredible story, and so much life that's lived and experience that's lived. Like, how does somebody go about, like, finding their purpose or finding their why or finding direction to be able to navigate into a different circumstance?
It's reframing the way you look at things, right? Because we often look at things as, oh, I have to do this diet and now I'm taking away sweets. Are you taking away sweets, or are you preserving the longevity of your independence, the function of your body, your organs, preventing chronic illness, right? We constantly look at as we're getting things taken away. And I still have these moments where I'm like, man, I miss my legs working full time. Man, I miss my bowel and bladder working full time. And I'm like, all I can see is that being taken away. And when I focus on that, all I see is my struggle. But when you look deep into your struggle and see that it's actually your superpower, because now you're getting a lesson that you otherwise wouldn't have got. And you're getting this experience that now you can take that experience and you can go give it to other people. And you can help them shortcut through their experience if they're willing to receive the message that you're putting out. But it's so helpful to know that you're not alone. So I always tell people, like, if you're going through something hard, there's a support group for everything on Facebook. Go find one, join that thing, just read the comments, know that you're not alone. Knowing that you're not alone is probably the biggest thing that's going to help you believe in yourself and understand that everybody experiences struggle. You are not special because of whatever you're going through. That is your superpower to allow you to develop and grow into who it is you are meant to be. And you are going to continue to face struggle because we are continuously growing, or meant to be constantly growing. And that's the big issue with humans, is we become who we are as adults and then we think, okay, this is good enough because that's what we're told, rather than continuing to become our best version of us. If you want to have a fit body, if you want to have a fit mind, if you want to be the best parent you can be, if you want to be the best at whatever it is, you have to be consistently working to become the best. Because even when you hit that best, the bar is going to be raised again. And that best is now here and you're just good.
Yep. Yep. Just tickling left and right. Just tickling left and right. I even tell people, I'm like, my favorite lesson that God continues to teach me is there's no finish lines, because the moment you think there is one, the rug just gets swept right out. It's like, get to work. And then I tell people I'm dangerous because I spent my whole life studying this, but you also forget that when you read Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, the game is not won when you slay the dragon. The last step is when you return to the village to teach the lesson. And once it's passed on, the new demon appears, right? And you nailed something. I actually, you're familiar with like martial arts, but John Danaher did a video with this because he was on Lex Fridman's podcast, and he asked him about the meaning of life. And I heard the most articulated, well-framed answer. And he's like, we as human beings both won and lost the game at the same time, because we figured out survival. We figured out comfort. We figured out temperature. We get food at our disposal just by hitting a button. He's like, but it also took away the one thing that was required to happen, that it didn't matter if your wife left you, somebody came and clubbed her over the head, took them away, you lost your house, because before that, you still had to get up and go do something. You had to go procure food. You had to go walk. You had to go get water. You had to take care of your kids. And now we get stuck in this stagnation thinking that there's some pause period, but it's either growth or death. And it's this thing that you have to continue to pursue. Go ahead.
Do you think that that could be the disconnect between human beings as a whole? Is that we're not forced to go out and find that survival because we have so much instant right here in our face.
Yep.
Oh, we want to connect with that friend. Let me just go to their social media.
Yep.
And so
because
now,
it's also the illusion of connection.
right. It is such an illusion because it's not true connection. There's
No.
nothing better than having a face-to-face, one-to-one conversation with somebody in real life where you can touch them and they're tangible and they're right there. And I think we lost that a little bit as society. And now we forget how to treat each other like human beings.
Yeah. Yeah. And when he breaks it down, like the two things that everybody shared in common is that prior to that time, we all had one thing in common. We had a shared goal, which was survival, and it was driven by faith. And we are also the only mammal that doesn't have a natural process for releasing our lymphatic system. Like if you see an antelope go get attacked by a lion and survive, what's the first thing it does? It shakes and then immediately just goes start eating grass. Well, movement is the only thing that the human body has, which is why you see people like Tony Robbins rebounding, and people go move their body and they sweat, and you always feel better when you do it. But if you live in a world of Wall-E and you're just addicted to being on your phone and being in lack of movement, and we'll leave the whole podcast on why that happens and how controllable it makes people and all divisiveness it makes people. We literally lose the ability to be in our bodies, and in your body is where all the truth happens, right? It's chop wood, carry water. I've probably read 30 scripture quotes in the Bible about literally like working with your hands and being of service and being in motion and being in work, because that's where meaning's created. And so the more we get addicted to doing nothing or sitting in our chairs and sitting on our phones, we just literally stack everything against ourselves that gets in the way. And so it's the most, I'll link it in the show notes for everybody because I've talked about it a ton, but it is an incredible viewpoint. And it's 9 minutes of just like, holy moly, right? And then you stack there's a book I read years ago called Guns, Grains, Germs, and Steel, which was all about the Industrial Revolution. And you start stacking all that stuff on top of it, and you're like, oh, this is really starting to make sense. And I'll let everybody go uncover what makes sense means to you, but I feel like it is. And even in my life, like when I was in the deepest, darkest of the holes, like 100 pounds heavier than I am now, like just even 18 months ago, till I lost it forever for the right reasons. But that's a slippery slope. And then the more evidence you have that it doesn't work, the more endowed you get into it, and the harder and harder it feels to get out of it. And we get convinced that it's complicated. We get convinced that it's overwhelming. And I was like, well, or you can just go for a 10-minute walk, because the fork didn't make me fat, right? I did, right? Like the fork didn't pick itself up.
The other issue with that, right? So my primary focus is nutrition coaching. That's my favorite thing to do. I love food. Food is power. You can manipulate your body composition without even picking up a weight, all with food.
Facts.
And I think that's important for people to understand. And a lot of these chronic illnesses are based off of what we've been consuming over a long period of time. And people don't think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The whole reason I became a nutrition coach is because 5 years into my spinal cord injury, I lost full independence. I couldn't transfer. I couldn't get dressed. I wasn't able to take showers independently, all because my shoulder health deteriorated so rapidly. And I literally was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this. I had a cousin commit suicide June of 2020, and I felt jealousy when that happened. And my niece on the same side of the family a year earlier did the same thing. And both times I felt this massive amount of jealousy that their pain and their struggle was over. And I immediately gave it up to God. I'm like, yo, I don't know why I'm here. I should not be feeling like this. I need you. I need you to show me. I need you to guide me. I need you to give me the strength. And then from there, I was connected with First Form, and I learned about macros, and that I was probably under eating protein. And who knew that something so simple could solve my problems in 6 months? And it's like, if we think about what we do now in terms to how it's going to affect us 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it changes your whole perspective on your current quality of life and the way that you live it and your current lifestyle. And when you change your perspective on the current lifestyle to see the longevity of your life, you make a couple different decisions.
Well, you do. And the thing that I just love that you nailed is that the thing that happens is we advocate our responsibility, and we think that when this says it, or this food says it, or this diet says it, right? Have we not learned that they made cholesterol bad because it was fighting an entire industry, and then it was all disproven, and nobody's coming out of like, hey, you should eat good stuff and you should do this, right? Like it's this constant advocation of sovereignty, or the giving up of our own responsibility to know what it is. And quite frankly, I underate. Like I was bulimic for 15 years, right? Like I lived with an eating disorder because of my own trauma, but it's so prevalent around the game. And I'm like, well, we drive F1 vehicles as human beings, and we put crap in the gas tank, and we expect it to perform so well, right? And so it's
what
like
an analogy.
that's what it boiled down to. And I'm like, yeah, I wonder why. Like I don't feel good. I'm not drinking enough water. Like I don't even think about like what supplements I'm taking intentionally. I'm like, oh, somebody told me to take this, so I should take it. Or somebody said I should do this, so I should do this. But I have another one that I reference all the time. Mike Tyson did an interview with Sadhguru. And this is the most contrasty interview you could ever imagine. Like one of like the spiritual leaders of the world sitting down with Mike Tyson. And I loved this interview so much because he broke it down. And Sadhguru says this in such a beautiful way. And he's like, well, it's really funny, us human species, wherever you believe that you came from. He's like, you get put into this body and you never take the time to open the owner's manual and figure out how it works. And you expect why you feel like crap. And I was like, oh.
Whoa.
And I had the same reaction. And I was like, all right, oxygen out of that one, gone too, right? And like how frequently we give away our power because we saw this on Instagram. We saw this on TikTok. Somebody said I should do this. Somebody said I should do this. Well, should's a shame-based word, but it's your identity and your direction because you have to know where you want to be. And like, you know, I tell everybody, everyone's like, how'd you lose the weight and keep it off this time? I was like, honestly, I threw away everything I knew. I was a competitive athlete. I was competitive in CrossFit, right? Like after I almost lost my legs and they said I'd never walk again and they wanted to amputate them, I did the same thing you did. I was like, watch me. But my watch me wasn't out of desire. It was out of the fear that I had nothing to go back to. If they kicked me out of the Marine Corps, what was I going back to? Nothing. Like there was nothing there. And so it was fear driven, but then eventually, because I kept following it, it turned into like purpose. I'm like, oh, I can do this. But if I believed it, they would have cut my legs off. Like I had to fight for them not to amputate my legs. Like, you'll never walk again. You'll never have full function again. You'll never have think again. But now I have to take care of them differently. I have to work on them every day. Everyone's like, dude, your calves are so big. And I'm like, well, yeah, when you have the ability to not ever walk again, you take it very, very important to want to be able to use them. So I have to use them every day. Right. And so it's just understanding. And so the secret was, it was like, well, what'd you change? And I was like, well, I was too busy building my body or what I looked like for everybody else. And not once did I ever ask myself what I wanted. And it was like 18 months ago and all this stuff was bad. And I was like, what do I really want? And I was like, I want to be able to do backflips with my great grandkids. Like, I want to be able to be a spider monkey. Like, I want to be mobile. I want to be functional. And it threw out all the intensity that I had. And like, I had to hurt myself to do it, or that I had to overtrain or do all these crazy sports. And now it's so crazy because I am stronger and fitter than I've ever been at 40. And I work out 2 days a week. And I do some basic things around my house every day. Like, I don't know, stretching and body weight workouts and eating really amazing and taking care of my body while also eating whatever the heck I want. Like, right before we get on this thing, I had a giant thing of yogurt and threw in Cocoa Pebbles because it felt good. I was like, this tastes good. I don't know my macros. Like, I build my macros so I can eat these things. Like, I want chocolate chip pancakes. I want cake. Like, I want my cake and I want to eat it too. Like, I want to win that game.
And
but we got to take, you can.
That's the point.
That's the thing.
Yeah. It's like, what level of effort are you willing to put in to win that side of the game? And I think that's what it comes down to, is asking myself, what am I willing to give to get this result?
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a question for you around your mindset, because like, I love your mindset. Like, I love it. But I also know that, like, based on how you grew up, right, and there's a part of it where you give credit to that too, but there's also a part of it that it's a conditioned muscle that you choose to train every day, right? And so, like, how do you go about developing a bulletproof mindset like you have? Like, you're also acknowledging that you have down days and things like that, but like, it's really, really, like, I don't know, inspirational is not even the word. Like, I admire it, and I'm just so curious because it's just beautiful and so powerful to see. But like, how do you develop the mindset that you have?
It's an accumulation. It started with fitness of my physical being. And then it started with becoming more just mindful about what I was consuming mentally. What was I looking at social? Who was I following? How did it make me feel? And I asked myself a lot, how does this make me feel? Is this helping me get to where I want to be? Is this productive or is it destructive? And if things were destructive, I started removing them. And I told you in 2020, I prayed to God and I said, give me guidance. He gave me a podcast called Real AF, and it was 75 hard. And I was like, oh man, I don't think I could do this. I'm a wheelchair user. So I adapted it, failed, and it was a whole thing. But then I actually committed to the full program. And that really kickstarted me because it showed me I can do things that I didn't think I could. And when you read 10 pages of someone else's life experience every single day for a year straight, man, do you shortcut so much in life, because you're literally getting someone else's trials and tribulations and you're able to apply it to your life. So then I did that. And then I didn't work for 7 years. I lived on Social Security disability and applied for grants to be able to compete. I competed on the U.S. developmental team for wheelchair curling, the sport on ice, for like 3 years. And so being on that high performance team, right? Like, we get tools with that to work on our mindset. But then my dad got COVID and I didn't know where we were going to live. And I started applying for houses and apartments and I couldn't get approved for anything on disability. And I'm like, well, what do I know how to do? I can be an orthodontic assistant. It's been 7 years. I haven't worked on braces or teeth in 7 years, but shoot, I'm sure I can do it. And so I applied, ended up getting, I applied to 10 places, got 2 interviews, got a working interview, ended up working and going back to work. That I worked 40 hours a week. I was running that clinic within 3 months because I came in and I'm like, I just want to leave the world better than I found it. And I think that if we came together as human beings and really just tried to leave every situation a little better than we found it. If you're walking into a business, pick up that damn piece of trash. It's not that hard. I pick up trash all the time. I stuff it in my side garden. I throw it away when I see a trash can. It is not that hard. If you are in the bathroom, please, for the love of God, wipe off the counter. I often lean on the counter because I didn't have good balance for a long time. My whole sleeves and arms would end up wet because people just left it wet. It takes 1 second. If we just wiped off the water off a counter, we could keep bathrooms so much cleaner. It's not that hard to be the change you want to see in the world. And there came a point in my life where I was tired of just bitching about how the world was. And I realized if I wanted it to change, I had to lead by my own example. I had to be changed. So if you want to see change, whether it's in your life, your personal relationships, the world itself, you have to be willing to see change. And like, you have to be willing to see other people's perspectives and have a conversation. Have communication. Be that example. If you want your family to change, be the example. Will they change? Maybe, maybe not. But you will feel better. Discipline deposits. That's it. You're just putting deposits into your bank, your personal bank. That's it.
Discipline deposits. I love that. You'll appreciate this. When I talk to men's events and go to like men only, because I have to hold myself accountable, I'm like, how many of you are integrous? And they're like, me. And I'm like, cool. And I was like, how many of you peed today? Saw a drop of pee left on the toilet seat and walked out knowing you saw it and didn't wipe it off?
Ooh.
Yeah. And then they're like, and I'm like, yeah. Are we? Or are we pretending to be? Because there's two ways to play the game, right? And one is dissonance and one is real. And like, I'll never forget one of my personal development teachers like 10 years ago. She literally looked me dead in the eye. She's like, if it's up to be, it's up to me. And I was like, oh, right. And then you go read Jocko, 100% ownership, 100% of the time. But like you think about the Marine Corps, like that's what made us successful. Because they're like, no one's coming. We're going to give you equipment that's 30 years old, that's recycled from the Army and Air Force that doesn't work. And yet you still have to do the same job that they do. And by the way, if it doesn't work, you figure out how to make it work. And we're like, oh, got it, right? And it's like, I feel like people, and I feel like I want to do this with this podcast. I want to just take sound bits of you and make them alarm clocks on my phone. Like you just speak and like dropping bombs for like 45 to 60 straight seconds. And there is so many levels of wisdom and depth. And really like, bro, I'm in a wheelchair picking up trash and wiping up counters and you able-bodied lazy mofo can't bend down and pick it up and you walk by it 100 times. But it's so interesting because it really, really is the difference. It really, really is the difference. And your behaviors are the ones that create catalysts because it's the same thing with kids. Parents know this more than anybody. Your kids don't listen to a word that you say, but they watch everything that you do. And if you see your kid yelling, if you see your kid screaming, it's not because of what you said. It's because they saw you do it. And when you want to change it, you have to change that behavior. And like my son's school teacher made me do this. And she's like, hey, he doesn't know how to label his emotions yet. Remember, he doesn't have a paradigm. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, do you ever drop anything and get upset? And I was like, well, yeah, sometimes. I'm like, fudge or crap. And she's like, oh, really? So do you wonder why he throws a pencil when he gets frustrated? And I was like, oh. And I was like, Brooke, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, you read the book. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, it's going to happen. And then you get to say oopsie out loud. Be like, oh, oopsie, look, daddy's body feels angry. And in this moment, I'm choosing to do something different. And literally, I've been doing it for 6 months. And it's been the most life-changing thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it really, really is that simple if we choose to make it that simple.
You know, I think we don't realize how impressionable kids are. And I think a problem, so I was a 90s baby and we still played outside and we're that generation that got internet like when we were in our early teens. Yep. And so we got to grow up normal. And I think a big problem with kids' mental health this day is how much technology they're connected to. They're not getting enough sunlight. They're not getting enough movement. They're not getting enough nutrition. We have a problem, a technology problem. And what do? We introduce more technology, more convenience. There's too much instant in this world that is making human beings lose their will to work, their will to go get more, their will to be that hunter and gatherer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think it's just a kid problem. No. And I have an interesting perspective on this too, because I think all too often we fall into the trap of making the medium wrong, and it advocates the fact that we had choices. Because you go pull up a photo from the 20s in San Francisco on the trolley, and no one was talking because there were newspapers in front of everybody's faces, right? Now we make it the phone, but the moment we make it the phone, it advocates us of the responsibility that it's us. We're the ones that choose it, right? Like, yeah, this thing can either control you or you can control it, right? Like, it's the difference between prison and your power is like, yeah, having containers, like putting it in do not disturb mode. Like, I don't know, try going to dinner and leaving at your house. You'll deal with a lot of panic attacks, but watch what happens, right? And like, I love it when we do like events and things like that. Like, I have clients in an intensive, I'm like, throw your phones in the bucket. They're like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, all of us, all the time, myself included. Like, if it's an emergency, the 3 emergency contacts in my phone, it will make a noise if they come through because they're designed to be able to get through if it's in do not disturb. But like, we give our power away all the time, and then we wonder why we don't have the results. And it's like, okay, cool, let's get honest. You don't wonder why you don't have results? Open screen time on your phone and I'll show you where all your results are hiding.
It's not even results. You wonder why you're not happy.
Facts.
You wonder why
right?
you're full of anxiety.
You said it earlier. You're like, the destructive behaviors, like, look at the things I'm consuming. Look at the movies I'm watching. Look at the television shows that I'm consuming for 2 hours a day that are literally glorifying everything I say I don't want. Like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I literally, when I met God on ayahuasca for like the 5th time, because I already met God on deployment, I met God here and just spent my life running from him until I was like, oh, you've been here the whole time. I just had to wake up, right? Okay, cool. Hence my post 2 days ago. And I was like, this wasn't really about my choice to be rebaptized as much as it was of like, I just had to open my eyes and take a breath. But I'll never forget that moment because I genuinely left there, and that's when I gave away the company. And when I gave away the company, I deleted social media, like millions of followers. I was gone. And I made a rule because I was challenged to not consume content for 3 years. No movies, no music, no books, no television. And I figured out really quickly why I was unhappy.
Oh,
and then I just got to sit in that purgatory until I realized that, like, I just got so sick and tired of feeling that way. And everyone's like, oh, and I was like, well, you wonder how I added so many fans to my social media following? Well, when you can't consume, there's only one thing you can do: create and create and create and create. And I was like, oh, and then you start to feel alive again. But you nailed it. It's really, we allow so much of the outside world. I had my buddy Matt on the podcast who's incredible at storytelling. And he's like, all of you let the internet rob you of your story.
Yeah.
Because they say this, they post this. And one of the things I love about you, and I mean my favorite thing, is you are an embodiment of like unabashed, unapologetic authenticity. You're like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
Me. I'm like,
and it's just pure freedom.
Well, it's the minute you stop giving other people your power. And I don't need the likes. I don't like, it's nice. Thank you. Thank you for allowing my journey to inspire you on your journey. Thank you. I am so grateful for that. But if you don't agree with me, just keep moving on. I don't know why social media, I do know because you hide behind the screen and this private face and whatnot. And like, there's no face to face. But it's this place where people believe that they can just be ugly for no reason. And I'm like, hey, if you don't agree with me, that's cool. Keep it moving. Just move on. Unfollow me. I don't care. There are 8 billion people in this world. 8 billion people. I have not liked every single person I've met in this world. How can I expect everyone that meets me to like me? That's asinine. Why would I even project that out there? Now I'm allowing these likes, these follows, these people that I'll probably never meet control my happiness. Is that fair to me? I'm my number 1 star player. I tell everybody in my life, I'm like, look, in this world right here, like obviously God's number 1. God's number 1. But the most important thing that you can do in your life for you to be able to show up the way you need to as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as an employee, as a business owner, whatever it is, love you unconditionally, that you're your number 1. I'm my favorite person in the world. There is no one else in this world that I would love to just be alone with in silence with than myself. And I spent so many years, I'm talking 27, 28 years, hating the woman I am. And to find that love and then put you as number 1, That's what allows you to get what you're after. That's what allows you to show up as a better spouse, as a better parent, as a better friend, loved one, whatever it is. You will show up 10 times better if you just learn to put you first and love you. Create boundaries. Boundaries will be your best friend. They will allow you to succeed whatever you want to succeed. They will allow you to find happiness when you create boundaries around everything. I have friends that, they were great friends before I was paralyzed, but that's because we were all doing the same thing. And she's like, yeah, I'm full of anxiety and I'm on all these antidepressants and pills and the doctor's switching my meds and I just can't get it right. And I'm like, get off Netflix, get off TikTok. Let's eat a little better. Let's go get some movement. Go for a walk. Because now you have a small, tiny human who's absorbing all of these actions that you have and that you're doing. And what's that tiny human going to believe is the way to live in the real world? And now that tiny human is going to turn into a big human that has the same problems that you have. Be better for those around you. It's not about you. It's about everyone around you. And if you truly care about your kids the way you say you do, about your spouse the way you say you do, about your mom and dad, your siblings, whatever it is, if you truly freaking care, you're going to show up as your best version of you. But you can't say you truly care when you're half-assed in life.
Reminds me of my favorite lesson in the Marine Corps that I never understood. Why did we practice for 18 months for 3 days of work, and why was practice harder than the field? Is because how you practice is how you play, and everybody wonders why they get 50% of the results when they get into the life. It's because of how you practice when nobody's looking. And girl, I'm just so excited you're taking me and everybody else to church, because I am tickled and I am ready to take over the world right now on a level that I can't even explain. I'm going to say this now, everybody. She has one of my favorite Instagrams in the world, and I just want everybody. This is not even a recommendation. This is a requirement. I don't even care if she tickles you. If she tickles you, it's for the right reason, because she's calling you out. But she's also calling you forward, because the thing that I know about her too, she doesn't need you on your Instagram. She wants you to come get a permission slip to be you and then go be you. Pick up whatever piece that you need and go put it into practice. So can you give everybody your Instagram? This is way better if you say it.
So my Instagram is at Jesi Stracham. That's JESISTRACHAM. I'm on every major platform there. And my website, it's all the same name. So if you just search that, you'll find me everywhere.
Yeah, and I have a book too, because earlier when I was asking about direction and how do you have that mindset, one of my favorite books ever on this is The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, because he talks about why and ties in some of the things that we talked about like why we feel the way that we feel and why we get stuck in stagnation, and gives you exercises and stories to literally help unlock and find that version of yourself, right? Like there is no finish line in this game. It's about self-discovery, right? Like I saw somebody do a video that they're like, you lost the hike before you did it because you thought it was about making it to the top. It was about finding out who you were on every step of the way to that top, right? And it's such an impeccable and powerful thing, but also you are like a walking, living muscle, and you flex every single one of them, and it just makes my heart so happy. Like I'm over here tickled, and I'm like, I could listen to you all day. Like I feel bad for even speaking for like 15 minutes on this podcast, and I'm like, I feel like I got in the way too much. Like just take me to church.
Can I tell you my biggest secret?
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's enough. That is the hardest thing that I struggle with, is that I don't feel I'm doing enough. I don't feel there. I feel there's more. And so when you say like, I just laugh because I'm like, no way. Like I know there's more. I feel like I can give more. I have to figure out how and where, but I know.
I think the distinction is to come from, right? I think it's when you feel something, right? It's either out of insecurity or it's out of passion and purpose, right? And that's where the greatness is achieved, because it's not from a lack. It's from a place of self-love. And you're like, no, like there's progress. It's always progress, right? There's no point to being here if you're just going to check a box and come out, right? So it's growth in every area all the time, every time. But you embody that as you sit there and say that, as you're in a rehab hospital about to volunteer as soon as we jump off this podcast.
I'm just going to give paralyzed people some hope, that like, hey, life is going to be okay, y'all. Like I primarily work with the non-disabled population with nutrition coaching and mindset
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But I do volunteer my time for my community because I believe that they have the same abilities I have. I came from the same place. I have parents, my mom drove truck and my dad was her dispatcher. Like I have blue collar parents that I don't come from money. I didn't get a massive settlement when I got paralyzed. I royally fucked up my entire life over and over again. I ignored God's calls. I filed bankruptcy at 21, had an abortion, snorted pills, cheated on my long-term relationship that I bought a house with the individual. Like I royally, and then got paralyzed. And I royally did all the things, right? And there came a point where I got tired of my own narrative
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you start to define yourself as is I'm this person that's in perpetual struggle. And when you start to define yourself by your struggle, that's what you become. And that's what I became. And I still was that. I was a victim for the first 2-3 years of my injury. And I got tired. I got tired of being tired, man. I got rid of my TV. I don't have a Netflix subscription. I do have Hulu because there's one show that I have been committed to, and that's Grey's Anatomy. That's it.
I was like, you got to tell me the show. I got to know what show it is.
This is Grey's Anatomy. I love doctor stuff. And it was after I was paralyzed, I got into it.
Yeah.
Because the medical community, I think the biggest thing that I learned from my spinal cord injury, question everything. Don't take anything at face value. Just because someone has a doctor in front of their name or they've done X, Y, and Z, you cannot just take everything they say at face value. Doctors told me I would never regain anything. If I believed that, I wouldn't have. Another great example is Andy Frisella talks about how he didn't make money for 10 years, but he doesn't tell you that he had another job during that time. Like that's not something he talks about a lot. And so you don't realize you're only getting pieces of the story. And so as soon as you realize that you're getting pieces of someone else's story that are typically the highlight or the easy road, you realize that, they're going through struggle too. They're just not showing it to you. You are not alone. You are not alone. And if you feel alone, please reach out to me, reach out to George. We are here for you because you deserve love, happiness, and to live the life that you're capable of living. And we're people that want to help you get there and lift you up and just be that guiding light and love for you because there's too much hate in this world. And we have to be the example through the way that we show up for others.
1,000%. And you said this earlier, and I'm glad that you said that again. Like the most important thing is that nobody can reach through your phone and find you. But the moment you reach out, there's a whole lot of people to catch you. And so it just is always the first step. And it just so happens that everything I read in the basic instructions before leaving Earth also comes after we step first, we walk first, we'll be met. And that's in any area in life. Like when you take that first step, everything starts to get a whole lot easier because that first step can only be taken by you.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
All right. I got a couple like rapid fires because I'm like innately curious, like because you are a student of this game as well. And I love that about you. Like, what are some of like your favorite books that you've read? Like you mentioned Tim Grover earlier. Like what are some of your like, oh my God, these three like changed my life?
Definitely Tim Grover, Winning. I love that.
Winning for sure. Love that book.
Wins, Losses, and Lessons from Lou Holtz. Also a great one. Outwitting the Devil. Probably I read that at least once a year. And Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Oh, Chris Voss, yes.
I read that once a year as well.
Yeah.
Probably if you are in business, if you are an influencer working on brand partnerships, if you're doing anything where you're negotiating, you need to read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It will change the entire way you approach conversations as a whole in your life. Like I said, I read it at least once a year and I listen to the audiobook once a year. Like that is a go-to. And if you want something for entertainment, but also life lessons, listen to Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights.
Green Lights. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Listen to it because he narrates it and he
does.
Oh my gosh. It's phenomenal. It is.
Have you actually seen the physical copy though?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I hadn't seen it, and we're going to talk about this. I've recommended this book before, but we just did, when I did my event in Dallas at the Airbnb, there was one book on the coffee table, and it was his, and it actually has his hand-drawn journals in it. Everything he talks about is actually in the book. And so I'm like, you need to get a physical copy as well, because it makes it such a deeper experience, because it's all of his photos, his journal, the actual things he wrote are in the book. It is incredible, like absolutely incredible.
You just gave me like, so because he narrated his book, I was like, yeah, I'm narrating my book. But now, like, we include a lot of social media posts from when early days in my accident, like before, like I was saved the day before my accident, made a whole post about how great God is and that he's got me covered. And the next day I'm in this life-changing accident. And like those type of things, that'd be so impactful. So I'm writing a book, guys. It's called Power in the Role. It should be available later this year. And so that's a great idea to put in there. Wow.
Oh, don't worry. When the book is close, you're coming back and we're doing this again.
Um,
So yeah, you guys are kind of stuck with Jesse and I, because like we insta bonded, and one of our business partners and I like became really close as well. Tony, we love you. We love you to
yeah,
pieces, Tony.
you really do.
Um, yeah. And so actually I'm going to ask you something. I don't ever ask anybody this, but for everybody listening, how can we support you?
I would love if you guys, if you can donate $1, $5 to my nonprofit called Wheel With Me Foundation. We are working to build a transitional community for wheelchair users to integrate them back into independent society. The spinal cord injury community alone, which is the type of disability I have, over 50% of my population relies solely on government assistance for their independence. We are not taught that we can go back to work, we can figure things out. There's programs out there to help us. So then you add that with the people born as wheelchair users and their parents coddled them their whole life, and now they're 30, 40 years old, have never drove, don't know how to take care of themselves. Their parents die, they end up in a nursing home. Trying to stop that from happening and really give people quality of life, because a wheelchair should not take away your quality of life just because that's the way society views it.
Yeah, and we will put all of this in the show notes for sure, because we are in and we will support you, and I will do anything I can to turn your volume up. I promise.
Thank you.
That
Thank you. And if
yeah.
anyone has if anyone wants to volunteer with us as well, we have a summer camp. We host community meetups around the country. If you have wheelchair using friends that you want to connect with us, we're called Wheel With Me. We have Wheel With Me Foundation and Wheel With Me Adapt Fit, where my business partner there and I launched one of the first fitness apps for wheelchair users by wheelchair users. So we are certified trainers that are giving people not only a private community on Facebook, but also a actual downloadable app in the App Store.
Oh my God, you just continually inspire me. So for everybody listening, we will put all of these links in the show notes, like everything from Jesse's website, which I recommend, the Wheel With Me Foundation. And if you found anything, and I mean anything of value in this, anything, my one ask is that you please reach out to Jessie on Instagram and let her know, because I know it fills her bucket. We talk on Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
So she is on it. She is in it. She's living it. And since she doesn't have Netflix and only one show on Hulu, she has a whole lot of time to connect with people and embody and live everything that she teaches. And so, girl, I don't even, I'm gonna ask one last question, because it just feels like the appropriate way to land the plane. But I love this question, and I'm so excited to hear your answer. So just imagine that nobody remembers the first 57 minutes of this show, and you have the ability to tattoo any wisdom on their soul that they'll take with them forever. What would your tattoo wisdom be?
Your obstacle is your opportunity. Go live life to the fullest. Go now. Don't wait. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or you're 50. Go now. You wasted too much time by just thinking about it. Like, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. I think that's like probably the most important thing to understand is literally no one knows. Like I co-own 2 businesses and I run a nonprofit and I have my personal brand. I guessed to build all of it. It was literally learning, asking other people for help, asking from their experience, learning from others, reading, and just kind of messing around and finding out and trying to figure out
Yeah.
what works and what doesn't, and a lot of failures. And I think
Yeah.
when you reframe failure to lesson and knowing what doesn't work, it's no longer a failure. It's no longer scary. It doesn't have that big F word on it, right?
Yeah.
So the sooner that you just use your obstacle as opportunity and just try to find the silver lining in everything. There is a silver lining in everything. Like, yeah, I'm sad that my cousin's no longer here and my niece after committing suicide, but I'm also very happy for them that they're no longer in pain. I'm sad that that's the way they had to figure it out, but they did what they had to do, they felt was best for them. And we have to support people with the decisions they make and what they think is best for them. And it's not our choice. And when you stop trying to control other people's lives and just focus on your obstacle as your opportunity rather than others, you win. And also,
You
if you
win.
guys gain value on top of just like sending me a message of what your favorite thing was, I would love if you could support George by sharing this with somebody directly. Like you hear a nugget in here and you're like, aha, this person could really benefit from this. Share it with that person. Podcasts like this grow because of you, because of your listen, because of your share.
Mhm.
So that's all I ask personally. Please, please, please share the show.
Thank you, girl. I love you to pieces. I
Dude, I
love
love
you, love you,
you.
love you to pieces.
Thank
And
you.
if you guys have ever seen me post about how perspective is the only difference between your prison and your power, you just got to witness our masterclass and what it looks like. And so I have nothing else to add to this magical, magical interview, conversation, moment. And thank you for gifting me with your time and your presence and your words and your wisdom. And most importantly, your example. Like from the bottom of my heart, like, thank you. You inspire me at a level I can't even articulate or put into words. And I thank God for gifting you every ounce of your life and your story and giving you the power to do this, because it is a true gift to this world. And so thank you for sharpening my sword. Thank you for
Thank you,
calling me
George.
forward. Like, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't care if anybody's listening to this, but like, thank you.
No, that feeling is
Thank you.
so, so mutual. I needed this just as much today. Like, just getting to share energy with you and the positive vibes and just the true love to want to help other people. I think that that's the best, right? You can't replace that. And now we get to go out and do that on such a different caliber from this
Yeah,
conversation.
I get to go ooze it onto my kiddo, and you get to go ooze it on people and give them hope and perspective. And so, for everybody listening, this has definitely been another episode of the Mind of George show, where I believe it belongs in a straitjacket. So we share the safest, most unfiltered parts with you, and this is where we are, and this is what it looks like. And so please, uh, my ask, and thank you for asking for them to share the show. I'm going to add to that. And the thing that would mean the world to me is that you go support her and her foundation and anything that she asked. And if that includes sharing the show, please. But if you only have one, please support her in helping people get empowered in their life and being able to do the things that they've been convinced and taught that they can't, because you don't realize how far $5 or $10 goes to make a difference for somebody, to give them hope, to give them access to things they didn't have, to give them possibilities that they've been convinced their whole life they couldn't. Like, you have the ability right now, sitting on your phone and that lovely device we talked about, to change somebody's life and really genuinely make a ripple that hopefully you get to see and experience someday in real life. But I know it makes a difference. And so we will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're going to put a bow on this one. We're going to wrap it. We're going to land the plane, and we will see you in the next episode. We're out.
Thank you.